Listen, you were
Yes,
speaking
thank you.
on News Network last night, and following in, I want to pick up on all of that. That was immediately after the president's announcement on Air Force One, when detail was scant. As of this morning, do you have any further clarity in terms of impact on Canadian steel?
Well, as you know, and I think as you reported in your introduction, we still don't have the written text of the executive order, and that's a really important piece of information for us to review. So with that context, we still have a lot of details missing. Our job at this point, as I see it, is to ensure that we are pushing our strong stance and narrative to the United States at this moment in time as to why this approach should not be, why Canada should not be subjected to this steel tariff. So that is our absolute priority at this moment.
Okay.
And should the tariffs come, we'll start moving to things we need to do to mitigate the circumstances.
Okay, let's get a little bit more detail on both of those aspects. But just before we do, can I just go to the nature of reaction? It was all fresh when that had happened. It was such a surprise for everyone last night to have that announcement. Did you feel that you were in this 30-day reprieve and you still had some time and blindsided by all of that? Have you had some time to sort of process things even more thoroughly by this morning?
I think that we definitely we were pleased with the reprieve that was granted last weekend, but we always knew that 232, which is what we expect to see, but we don't know quite yet, is a favorite instrument on steel of this particular president. So we always knew the risk was there. Obviously, we had hoped that the reprieve would apply to our industry, but also, on a permanent basis, not just for 30 days, because of the significant work we have done together since 2018. Like, the main message on that is we are not in 2018, back in the day when this president under his first administration put 232 tariffs on us. An awful lot has changed. And if anything, we have strengthened our integration and strengthened our work together to combat unfair trade practices.
And yet, not the exemption that you were seeking for. Do you have a sense of why not? Is it about China or is it about Canada still?
Well, first of all, we're pushing for an exemption. So let's not suggest that we don't have that yet. I think we need to fight for it, and that's the outcome we're looking for. I think that, I don't want to comment on what is in President Trump's mind as he's doing this. I guess what I could say is I think every nation understands that steel is a very strategic industry. It plays an important role in the economy. Many key sectors of the economy that rely on steel. It has an infrastructure and a defense application. So you really want your domestic industry protected. And that's the case in Canada too. So tariffs at 25% going into one of our main markets will be devastating on our industry, devastating on our employees, and we really can't let this happen. In the event that it does happen, Heather, I want to be very clear. We need immediate and strong retaliatory measures against the United States. It's unfortunate, but that's the situation we're going to be in. There's simply too much at stake. We also need to consider what more we need to do in our domestic market. As the U.S. shuts its borders to everyone, we're going to be highly exposed to more unfair trade. So we're actually going to see a doubling down effect in our market. We'll have lost the U.S. access, and we will have more unfairly traded imports flooding our market.
So in terms of just a couple of things, again, to clarify, the retaliatory measures, I was speaking to Flavio Volpe, whom you doubtless know, the head of the Automotive Parts Association. He was saying if it's a targeted tax, a targeted tariff from the U.S. part, in his view, it should be targeted from Canada. If it's universal, then universal. Do you have a specific view of what the retaliatory measures should look like if indeed you are not exempted?
Well, we think it has to be strong. It has to be economically, impactful, and it has to send the message to the United States that he's not going to pick us apart one by one either, right? So
it was orange juice in 2018. Are there products in particular that you'd like to see?
In 2018, it was, I think that's the place to start, but I think we have to put a fine print to what more we should be doing. One of the things we want to see, and we heard over the weekend, last weekend, some additional suggestions of what Canada's thinking about with respect to retaliation. But what we were surprised to learn was steel was not included right up front. Steel and maybe some other strategic aspects of steel in our supply chain weren't included in the first and immediate reaction. So that's the conversation we're now having with the government, that we essentially need to see that retaliatory package, include steel.
That's interesting. That initial $30 billion that they were trying to minimize the impact on the Canadian consumer before bolstering it to, well, ultimately to about $155 billion. You want steel to be moved up in terms of the first response. Is that what you're suggesting this morning?
Yes, especially to the comment you've just made. This is steel oriented, so we need steel to be considered immediately in the response. And we know, that we understand more than anyone else probably the level of disruption that a 25% tariff will have on the steel industry on both sides of the border. So I think we need to send our strong message right off the hopper here that this disruption will not be met, readily. Canada's not going to roll over on this issue.
Catherine, if you could give me a sense, to whom have you been speaking since the announcement last night? I imagine all sorts of, Flavio Volpe was saying his cell phone blew up, and I'm sure yours did as well. To whom have you been speaking, and what is the plan for you today in terms of your conversations and your strategizing today?
Well, again, as I mentioned, I think our first and top priority is to work with our government to get us out of the tariffs, out of this suggestion of tariffs on everyone. Canada is a unique circumstance, and we have a strong narrative and very strong level of effort that we have done to align with U.S. trade policy. We have key tools in place that we did not have in 2018. We've met the obligations of our 232 agreement with the United States. So there's that. And of course, that involves contact and much communication with the political and official Ottawa here today, yesterday, last night, today, tomorrow, for the days ahead. In addition, if the tariffs land, we'll need that retaliation to be strong, as mentioned. So those conversations are also ongoing. And frankly, we need to talk to other factors of the state. It's really interesting to see USW International and USW Canada, for example, come out in support of a position of no tariffs on Canada. That is very different again from 2018 and speaks to the point I'm making, that there's been significant work between our two countries to align our policy and to do the big fight, which is globally unfairly traded steel that destroys our fair traded marketplace between Canada and the U.S.
Catherine, thank you very much. I'll leave it there for now, but we'll certainly be following very closely in these immediate days and hours, and we'll be back in touch as your progress. Okay, thank you so much. Looking forward to updates from you. Catherine Cobden from Ottawa on CBC Morning Live.